Welcome, and thank you for joining for another whiskey review. Today, we're going to take a look at one of Campbeltown's finest, the Longrow 18-year-old. 46% ABV, limited edition. Let's get this thing poured, tell you a little bit about the whiskey, let it open up a bit, and then we'll get into it. Longrow from the Springbank distillery. 2 times distilled and heavily peated. Now, heavily is a subjective term. Fans of Lafroy, Beg, and Lagavulin will have a different opinion on what they think heavily peated is. However, in Springbank, the Longrow is their version of a heavily peated whiskey. 46% ABV. This particular one is a cask maturation of, I wrote it down, I want to make sure I got it right, 60% rum casks and 40% refill sherry casks. So, it is natural color, unchill filtered. Anytime you're talking Springbank, which is the Longrow or the Hazelburn, you know you're getting unchill filtration, you know you're getting natural color. Thank you, Springbank, for being good guys and doing it the right way. That's what I want to see in my whiskey. I don't care what color it is. This one, I'm excited to bring to you guys. I got a chance to do it with my good friend Keith from the Malted Man Cave on his channel, and I did not watch that review because I didn't want to jade my opinion on what I thought this whiskey was, because I haven't had it in a while, and I kind of want to get a new perspective on something that I've had before and bring it to you guys and tell you guys what I think. Now, this particular whiskey is a rather expensive one, $150 to $200 roughly, depending on kind of where you get it. All the Springbank, Longrow, Hazelburns, especially ones with some age on them, they're going to get pricey on you. Even the local barley 9s, 10s, and 11s, I mean, those are $150, $160 here. So you do pay a premium for any of the whiskeys at this distillery, especially ones with such a nice age statement on them. But we have one here today, courtesy of Keith from the Malted Man Cave. Thank you, buddy. And we are, or at least I am excited to tell you what I think about it. So again, natural color, unchill filtered. Lovely, lovely rich gold. It doesn't come off as dark on the camera as it really is in person, but it is a rusty gold, if that makes sense. It's gold with a little bit of dark brown tinge of rust to it, which normally with the Springbanks and the Longrows, that funkiness makes me think something rusted. So let's get into it. Earthy and dirty. Ash and soot. Oh man, that is just foul in a good way. Just a very dirty peat that has been just left outside for months before they decide to cook it, you know, into the barley when they were drying it. Hard to get past initially. Not from the pungency or the strength of it, just the overwhelming coating, sooty, earthy, burnt vegetable smell that initially they give off, but in a good way. All right, now it's starting to subside. Now my nose is getting used to it. It almost takes a step back. You got to get used to it. Just that Springbank funk. All right, so now some of the lighter notes are coming up. A little bit spicy. It's a solid, sharp spice. I'm not sure what spice, just because it's intermingled with that dirty funkiness. There's that doughy characteristic. Maybe a pepper or a black pepper mixed with salt. I had eggs with toast this morning for breakfast. So I sprinkled a little bit of salt and a little bit of pepper on the eggs. Getting a little bit of both pepper and salt with some dough that was left out too long. It's like someone was making cookies, and before they put any of the vanilla extract or the chocolate chips or anything in, they dropped some of the dough on the floor, just the raw dough, and then they threw it in the sink and they forgot to wash it down the sink, and it sat there all night and it got hard. It's that smell. And maybe apple, red apple. You know what's something? I'm gonna say something I didn't pick up on this initially, but I'm gonna say banana. Usually that's something I get in a young whiskey, but I have a Gordon and MacPhail Colila 11-year-old 2005 vintage cask strength, and there's like a certain soft banana note to that. Not a sharp banana, which I get sometimes in young whiskeys. It is a mature Cavendish banana. Well, actually, everyone has Cavendish bananas. If you've ever not had a Cavendish banana, I would love to hear where you got a better tasting banana. By the way, do you guys know that the reason why we eat the Cavendish banana is because it looks better and it looks yellow the whole time, where the better tasting bananas they get brown quicker, and here in the States, we won't buy something that looks that way. So basically we get the worst version of bananas because it looks better, despite the fact we're eating it. America. Anyway, I get a little bit of that banana that's soft and it's kind of old and it's getting a little bit brown, getting a little bit of that. You know, maybe the brownness of it is just a Springbank funk. I'm just getting a banana with that funky Springbank note. It's almost impossible to tell. And then maybe a pineapple? It's going to be a lot fruitier now once you spend a little bit of time with it. I've been drinking a ton last 10 days or so. I'm doing some home improvements, some things like that. Work's taking a little bit more of my time. So I haven't had a lot of chance to sit down and enjoy a few drams, but now that I got a chance to sit down and have a Klein this earlier and this here right now, man, I feel like the tropical fruit notes and just the general orchard fruit notes in some of these whiskeys are really popping for me. All right, enough talk. Let's take a sip. Quite a bit thinner on the palate than it was on the nose. On the palate, it smelled or it nosed a lot higher than a 46% ABV. I would think it would be around 50%. On the palate, it's a little bit thinner as far as the volume of the flavors and how they come. I mean, but it's spicy, doughy, earthy. I'm getting a little bit of pepper. I'm getting a little bit of orange, chocolate orange. Dark chocolate with that orange, not silky at all, very, very in-your-face dark chocolate. I went to Amsterdam a couple times when I was younger, in my early 20s. I'm not a big chocolate fan, but you know, everyone said you gotta try the chocolate there. So I had a couple of assortment of chocolates, and they had like a really dark chocolate that I wasn't a huge fan of, but it's almost like that level of dark chocolate, just a very dense dark chocolate. It's salty. A little bit of pineapple on the palate as well. Very interesting fruit flavors that go along with a very earthy, smoky style whiskey. You don't always get that a lot, but when you do, I've always took it as a sign that it's a well-crafted whiskey that has some really good casks in the maturation. At least that's my opinion. All right, so I added a little bit of water to it. Give a little swirl around the glass. I don't like to be as violent with the swirl as that, but being that I don't have a lot of whiskey in this particular pour, and I only put like a drop or so in, so really didn't put as much water as I normally do in. Yeah, that candied orange is really kind of lingering right here on the palate too. Really, really nice whiskey. Now, this one does, as I mentioned at the beginning of the video, have 60% rum casks. Now, traditionally when I think of like rum cask maturation, the first thing that comes to mind is the Balvenie 14-year-old Caribbean cask. And I've had some other rum cask finished whiskeys that were more vanilla, fruitier, sort of tropical fruit flavors. I'm not really getting a ton of that in here aside from the pineapple. But it almost reminds me of Fifth Ardbeg Drum, that little pineapple note in that. If you take that pineapple note and just douse it in campfire soot, that's the pineapple we're getting now. It's not a fresh pineapple. It's not even a clean pineapple. It is a pineapple that you rolled in a campfire the next morning after the fire had went out. It's a dirty, sooty pineapple. All right, so I added a little bit of water. As a matter of fact, let me just add one more drop, just because this isn't jumping out of the glass as far as a difference to me. And I know it has before if I've added a proper amount of water. So I'm gonna add a little bit more water, just kind of see what comes up. This is what I was going for with the water. If you add the correct amount of water, the sootiness and the funk steps back. And what you're left with is a far more fruit-forward dram. And spicy. I'm getting baking spices. Cinnamon, light cinnamon, clove, maybe a white cinnamon with clove. A green apple, like a slightly past its prime green apple. I'm getting that dough, that left out dough, but a sugary dough now, to where before it was plain dough. Now it's a sugary dough with water. Still getting a little bit of that ash and soot. I remember one time when I was a kid, I tricked one of my buddies into opening up this little vent door on the back of the chimney that we had in my house. So the chimney, obviously, you feed the fireplace in the front, and that's kind of where you sweep it out. But then as the ash kind of collects, there was a hole you could kind of sweep it into and empty it from the outside of the house on the other side of the chimney. So it was a door about yay big. Not that we ever really used it, but you could kind of, again, push the ash down in a hole and kind of go in this little container area, and you go outside and you could empty it there so you didn't have to bring the ash through the house. So when I was young, my next door neighbor and I were doing a joint Easter egg thing with our parents. We were all friends, and we just kind of made the 2 yards into one. And I said, hey, man, I think my dad put some of the Easter eggs in that little vent that's in the chimney. So I expected him to open a little bit of ash to fall out. I underestimated the fact that my dad never did it, and I was the only person who ever cleaned the fireplace. So when he opened it up, it just poured out. So thing is, he was kind of rushing to get it, because I was acting like, oh, I think one's in this little chimney container. And I start to run to get it. He runs up to grab it. He's looking at me, opens up the thing, tries to put his hands in, and just chimney ash just comes flying out of this thing. Wasn't my best moment as a human being, but just something I remember when I'm drinking this whiskey right here. Ashy dough from the fireplace. Last sip time. It really didn't change the viscosity much on the palate. It was already a little bit less than what the nose was. So whether it was neat or whether it was with water, the palate's pretty consistent. Water brings out a few more of the fruitier notes and dials down the sootiness and the funky ash smell on the nose, but on the palate, it's pretty consistent for the most part. And that's kind of what I found, as I've been kind of drinking this bottle down, that it's fairly consistent on the palate, whether it's neat or whether you add water. Still getting the spices, maybe a little bit more of a candied, dirty pineapple, orange, saltiness, dark chocolate. It's an excellent whiskey. Excellent, excellent whiskey. Appreciate Keith from the Malt Man Cave letting me take the rest of this bottle. I gave him a couple of bottles, Towers for 30 and something else. He gave me this. I was extremely impressed with it. I hope he is as impressed with the Talisker, and I'm sure we'll find out here soon. So if you're not a subscriber to his channel, or if you're not someone who has seen any of Keith's reviews, check him out at the Malted Man Cave. I'll put a little link right there. Click on and go check him out. Tell him Mike said hi. This particular whiskey, as far as the whiskey score, I'm going to give it a 90 out of 100. Very, very quality whiskey. I am a fan of a lot of the things that Longrow and Springbank do. However, I do tend to like the Springbanks a little better than the Longrows, just because their peat level is a little bit less. And I think that extra half the time distilled, the 2.5 times distilled, as opposed to Longrow 2 times distilled, cleans up the experience a little bit for me. That's just my opinion. Maybe I just don't have the right palate for it. Still whiskey I really enjoy, 90 out of 100. If you guys have had a chance to try this whiskey, please let me know what you guys think. Again, they didn't make a ton of bottles of it, so a little bit hard to get your hands on, but it's an excellent, excellent whiskey from a great whiskey distillery who does things the right way, so please support them if you like these whiskeys at all. Well, once again, I wish to see you in the comments section, and until next time, I wish you happy drinking.